Welcome to our Reading Development and Strategies training. During the course of this introductory presentation, you will learn about the components of becoming a reader and strategies to strengthen reading skills. We have also provided you with a brief list of resources you may wish to use to strengthen reading skills in each of the 5 areas discussed. These resources, while listed on a slide of the presentation, may be accessed through the session guide you received as part of this presentation. Please take a moment to review our outcomes. We will begin with a brief history of literacy development and an overview of the findings of the National Reading Panel. We will then take you through the basics of reading development and strategies for improving reading. Through the work of the National Early Literacy Panel, we have learned that oral language is the foundation for the reading and writing skills that children will develop as they enter and progress through school. Having a solid foundation in oral language will help children become successful readers and strong communicators. In 1997, Congress asked the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development, through its Child Development and Behavior Branch, to work with the U.S. Department of Education in establishing a national reading panel to evaluate existing research and evidence to find the best ways of teaching children to read. Specifically, Congress asked the panel to review all available research, determine the most effective evidence-based methods for teaching children to read, describe which methods of reading instruction were ready for use in the classroom, and recommend ways of getting this information into schools quickly. They also wanted them to suggest a plan for additional research in reading development and instruction. The National Reading Panel's analysis made it clear that the best approach to reading instruction is one that incorporates explicit instruction in phonemic awareness, systematic phonics instruction, methods to improve fluency, and ways to enhance comprehension. The simple view of reading was first proposed by Goff and Tumner in 1986 and is one of the most supported models of reading to date. The gist of the simple view is that reading comprehension is the product of decoding and linguistic or language comprehension. Reading comprehension is the product of decoding and language comprehension because if either decoding or language comprehension equals 0, the end result, reading comprehension, would then also be 0. For example, if I can decode Spanish, pronouncing in the words on the page accurately, but don't understand a word of it, I won't comprehend it. And if a child can understand simple spoken English, for example, my 3-year-old grandson, but can't decode printed words on the page stating the same, he won't have any reading comprehension because he can't read yet. This theory, now supported by decades of empirical research, is the basis for how we can understand reading development, instruction, and assessment. Hollis Scarborough's Reading Rope, 2001, gives us more insight into the complex ideas the simple view of reading seamlessly represents. In the image on the screen, the top red strands represent a student's language comprehension development. The bottom blue strands represent the components within a student's word recognition development. As the student's word recognition becomes increasingly automatic and language comprehension becomes increasingly strategic, skilled reading emerges. Considering the typical deficit of a student with word-level reading difficulties lies in phonemic awareness skills, this graphic may shed some light on the many components playing a role in reading the words on the page. Students with significant difficulties in word-level reading skills, despite adequate instruction, may have dyslexia, a specific learning disability in basic reading skills. Students might also be able to break the code and pronounce or decode all of the words on the page, but have trouble understanding what they are reading. These students may have deficits in syntax, vocabulary, or content knowledge. Students who have significant difficulties with language comprehension, despite adequate instruction, may also struggle. We'll now take a look at each of the areas of literacy identified by the National Reading Panel, with a focus on how a weakness in each area might impact reading, as well as some suggested strategies one might use to address those needs. Take a moment to view this graphic on the slide. Phonological awareness and phonemic awareness are terms that are often used interchangeably. They are, however, different but overlapping concepts, as we will explain in the following slides. What is important to note is that phonological and phonemic awareness are the connection between oral language development and literacy skills. Think of them as the building blocks necessary for learning to read and understand printed text. Phonological awareness is the ability to recognize and manipulate the spoken parts of words. From simplest to most complex, this would include sentence segmentation, rhyming, syllables, onset rhyme, and phonemes. But that's a lot of information. Let's look at some examples. When we are able to distinguish syllables, we can break the word, such as publish, into two separate parts, pub and lish. For onset rhyme, we would learn to distinguish auditorily the k and at in the word cat. And we'll get to phonemes in our next slide. But you may be wondering, why is this important? We know the ability to read develops from our ability to communicate orally, both receptively and expressively. We also know that a student's skill in phonological awareness is a means for us to predict how successful a student will be in learning to read. When a child has difficulty remembering sounds for letters, blending sounds together, distinguishing between similar words, spelling speech sounds, this may indicate a need for targeted intervention at the foundational skill. Phonemic awareness is the most challenging skill within phonological awareness. Phonemic awareness is the ability to distinguish and manipulate individual sounds, or phonemes, in spoken words. It requires readers to notice how letters represent sounds. It prepares readers for print. It gives readers a way to approach sounding out and reading new words, and it helps readers understand the alphabetic principle, that the letters and words are systematically represented by sounds. Tasks within phonemic awareness include blending phonemes into words, segmenting words into individual sounds, and manipulated phonemes in spoken words. For example, looking at the slide, say the phonemes for shack, sh, a, k, separately. Now blend them together to form the word shack. The reciprocal skill is segmenting, saying the word chip. Now segment or separate the sounds into the word, in the word, ch, I, p. So why are these skills important? We use the identification and blending of sounds to decode or read words. We use the identification and segmentation of sounds to encode or spell words. These skills are an integral part of foundational literacy. When students struggle in these areas, learning to read and spell will be difficult. Early identification and intervention through direct, explicit, multisensory, structured, and prescriptive instruction is key to addressing the specific needs of students to ensure literacy success. There are many strategies to use with children to build their phonological and phonemic awareness. Most can be done without any materials. Singing songs, reading poems and stories while pointing out rhymes and similar sounds is one of the easiest ways to involve your child in building their awareness through play. Counting words in a sentence you state or clapping syllables in words you share are also fun. Words with similar structure, such as cat, hat, bat, sat, can be shared orally to play the word family awareness game. In this one, you state a word, such as mat, and then another, pat, and ask your child if they rhyme. As their confidence grows, you can ask your child to provide you with another word that rhymes with those that you have already dictated. Matching games can also be used. Pictures of known items can be shown in a field of two, and you can ask your child to name the picture. Then, ask if the beginning sound of each picture is the same. For example, if you had a picture of a ball and a baby, your child would be asked if they have the same beginning sound, and the response would be yes. The field can be increased as your child becomes confident with the game. And finally, and much more complex, as students grow more confident with beginning and ending sounds, you can also introduce medial or middle sounds through picture games. For example, a picture of a cake and a Jeep would not have the same medial or middle vowel sound, while a picture of rope and soap would. This is certainly not an exhaustive list of activities you might try. Many others can be found in the resources section. The idea with these activities is to build your students' literacy skills, but to also ensure they are having fun doing it. On this slide, we have provided links to various resources you can use to build knowledge in phonological awareness, as well as the specific skills in phonemic awareness. These are provided in your session guide as well. Phonics is one of the key components of reading. It requires learning the code of our language. So now we're moving from sounds to making the connection between letters and sounds. This includes knowledge of the sounds associated with letters or groups of letters. The alphabetical principle is the concept that letters and combinations of letters represent individual sounds or phonemes. Developing readers learn to sound out the letters or groups of letters, also known as graphemes, of words on a page, and then blend those sounds in a specific sequence. As readers progress, they learn to discriminate between the internal structure of written words in order to sound it out. As word patterns are developed, readers can use that knowledge to read unfamiliar words. For a moment, think about the letters in the word cat. To read this word, one needs to identify the sound associated with the C, A, and T, and then blend them together in the correct sequence. Now consider the word act. The same letters, C, A, and T, are also used, but the word requires the reader to blend the same sounds in a different sequence. This attention to detail is critical. As phonics skills are further developed through repeated practice and repetition, the reader becomes more skilled in recognizing those patterns and applying them to words within different contexts. When decoding multisyllabic words, readers use phonics to identify the patterns of each syllable type, blending them together to read the whole word. With multiple exposures to a word, the developing reader demonstrates skills in identifying the word automatically, suggesting that the word has been mapped to the long-term memory. Such words are considered sight words and do not require one to sound them out. As a key element of reading, phonics is critical for reading single and multisyllabic words. Accuracy in reading words is developed first. As skills further progress, readers are able to read the words with automaticity. If one is struggling with associating letters and sounds and then blending them in the correct sequence, reading may not be fluent. Much effort continues to be on decoding parts of a word at the expense of understanding the content of the text. Phonics is also important for spelling words accurately. This may impact one's effectiveness in conveying thoughts and learned knowledge through written language. Many strategies can be used to build phonics skills. Early readers may participate in activities that ask them to point to or match a letter associated with a sound presented orally. This may include touching a letter tile among a small group of letters or holding up a letter card. A reciprocal activity, such as asking the reader to say the sound associated with a presented letter, can also serve to develop phonics skills. Putting letters together and providing opportunities for one to read a written word is another strategy. Modeling how to touch each letter from left to right as each sound is pronounced provides additional foundational supports as early readers learn to identify the sound associated with each grapheme. As word patterns are developed, review and repetition provide further practice to build accuracy and automaticity. Asking the early reader to orally use the word in a sentence serves to employ the reader's oral language skills to cement the meaning of the word and strengthen the transition into long-term memory. Spelling words, either with letter tiles or with other activities, such as with chalk or sand, also reinforces the letter knowledge associations. Again, these resources can be found in your session guide. Vocabulary is the knowledge of words and the concepts they convey. Vocabulary may be demonstrated through listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Receptive vocabulary refers to the word meanings someone can recognize when either reading or listening to someone speak. Expressive vocabulary refers to the word meanings someone uses when reading or speaking. Most everyone has a greater receptive vocabulary than expressive vocabulary. One's vocabulary may also differ depending upon previous and background experiences. One may have an extensive vocabulary within a specific content area, yet have a more limited vocabulary within another area. The breadth and depth of vocabulary may also be impacted by one's exposure to oral language opportunities. Developing readers may be able to decode words while not actually knowing their meanings. As David Kilpatrick notes in his book, Essentials of Assessing, Preventing, and Overcoming Reading Difficulties, if the student can use their growing decoding skills and match their result with a word they already know the meaning of, they will be more confident with their abilities and spend less overall effort on reading a text. Also, there's a greater chance that they will store the way this word looks on a page and will likely be able to access it more easily the next time they come across it. As readers approach new text, apply their decoding skills and contextual meanings of words, they have increased opportunities to expand their vocabulary. Those who struggle with reading may be exposed to fewer words, which may result in limited opportunities to expand their background knowledge, learn new word meanings, and in turn, this may result in experiencing more difficulty with reading. Explicit pronunciation and introduction of a word's meaning provides foundational skills for further development of the vocabulary word. If one is not able to pronounce a word, then it will require more effort to store it in one's long-term memory. This strategy may require use of oral segmentation of the word to assist with pronunciation. Spelling the word provides reinforcement to increase retention and knowledge. Discussing the parts of speech for the vocabulary word serves to help students categorize the word and, as a result, remember the word. Vocabulary may be further developed by illustrating the word with oral examples as well as pictures, depending upon the age and background experience of the student. Multiple examples of ways in which words to use in multiple ways in which to use the word within context reinforces the meanings of a word. Opportunities for practice of new vocabulary with a peer further enhances vocabulary development. Within a larger group, consider beginning a sentence or sentence stem and then asking students to respond chorally using a specific vocabulary word to complete the sentence. Motes and Tolman indicated that the ability to use a word in speaking or writing demonstrates true ownership of a word. Providing opportunities for students to share the word orally as well as in written form with peers, and then gradually within a larger group, promotes this ownership and skills with such vocabulary. Please take a moment to read this slide. You may pause the recording to do so. We see that fluency requires automaticity when reading. This means a student is seldom taking time to decode words, rather they are able to automatically read them. Decoding is effortless. Additionally, when decoding is effortless, the reader can focus their cognitive energy on monitoring their comprehension of what they are reading. The essential role of fluency is to support comprehension. This may sound relatively simple, but fluency is actually very complex, and research continues to delve into the intricate relationship of accuracy, rate, prosody or expression, and comprehension. We do know, however, when a reader struggles to read with fluency, they will also struggle with comprehension. So what can we do to build fluency? There are many strategies to help students build reading fluency. Although students may still be working at the word level to learn to decode words, opportunities with connected text at their independent level can and should be part of their literacy instruction. Be sure to note that independent level means a student can read the text with 95% accuracy. There are more and more available decodable texts to choose from that are based on word level structures students have been taught, thus relieving students of attempting to decode word structures they have not yet mastered. Additionally, strategies such as modeling fluent reading by reading aloud is another practice beneficial for building fluency. Reading can also be shared with a one-on-one adult and student taking turns to read text, with the adult providing ongoing support and encouragement. Choral reading may also be used, with a group reading a selected text together simultaneously, thus removing the potentially anxiety-provoking round-robin reading technique of having students read aloud individually, which is not good practice. Students may also benefit from reading phrases. In this activity, students are provided a list of phrases and asked to read them aloud while scooping under the phrase to support smooth reading. These phrases can be taken from text the student is already reading rather than recreating the wheel. Teachers may also wish to utilize scaffolded silent reading, during which students are explicitly taught and supported through the entire process, from book selection, silent reading expectations, comprehension strategies and modeling, individual conferencing, and discussion. One final suggestion for building fluency is having students read along with a recorded version of a text. Many of these strategies can be used both at school and at home. The language comprehension strands of Scarborough's rope that we reviewed at the beginning of this presentation include several different skills: background knowledge, vocabulary, language structures, verbal reasoning, and literacy knowledge. Comprehension refers to many different aspects of thinking as well as their products. This may include using background knowledge as you listen to or read a passage, making connections with text, and adjusting one's thinking as you gather more information. Understanding and monitoring one's own meaning are additional processes that occur when engaging with text. There is a continuum of skills as one has exposures to a variety of texts of different genres and complexities. Reading comprehension is the main goal or purpose of reading. Good readers set a purpose for reading. They consider the structure of the text, such as captions or illustrations. They often create a visual representation or movie in their mind as they read to monitor their comprehension. Good readers are also able to quickly and effortlessly get the words off of the page in meaningful phrases and sentences. And they return to those sentences if, while monitoring their comprehension, they find they need to reread to firm up their understanding. Good readers also tend to use their background knowledge to make connections and to generate inferences about text. In general, good readers tend to be very conscious, focused, and strategic when reading, and because of these practices, they gain great meaning from what they read. But what about students who struggle to decode words, who read word by word or haltingly? These readers often exert so much time and cognitive effort on decoding words that they often gain little meaning from what they have read. Additionally, because decoding words is such a struggle, these readers often do not set a plan for reading or monitor their comprehension. The lack of strategy, planning, and monitoring in the case of a struggling reader leads to poor reading comprehension. A variety of strategies may be used to build and enhance comprehension. These may include opportunities for conversational exchanges. The adult may engage the student in a conversation which is developmentally appropriate. After the student responds, the adult may repeat what the student says and then extend the conversation with additional information. This provides reinforcement of what the student said, as well as modeling for the structure of language and vocabulary. Asking a student to retell one or more key events after listening to or reading a story or parts of a story provides an opportunity to develop both listening and reading comprehension skills. Some students may require assistance by having the adult provide a sentence stem or a beginning of a sentence before being asked to repeat the adult's words and expand the sentence. After listening to or reading a passage, one might do a think aloud. With this strategy, the adult verbalizes about the story, modeling for the student how meaning is constructed from what has been heard or read. Students are then given opportunities to think aloud after hearing or reading passages or parts of passages. Explicit instruction about features and structures of text, including sentence structure, paragraph structure, as well as bolded words and graphics, offers additional opportunities to build comprehension. We hope you have enjoyed and found useful this presentation on reading development and strategies. You may have been wondering about the tiny plant in the top right-hand corner of many of our slides. The purpose of the seedling is to mirror the development of reading. Just as a tiny seedling requires light, water, soil, and the right conditions to grow, reading is equally complex. At the beginning of the presentation, you'll remember we showed you several graphics, including the simple view of reading, as well as Scarborough's rope. We then took you through each of the 5 areas of literacy to briefly discuss what they are and how they can be taught and/or strengthened. Please take a moment to review this slide and consider the skills needed to become a fluent reader, able to comprehend text. Note the planter as the foundation of reading skills, oral language, which develops well before students enter school. Skill in oral communication is integral to the development of reading and writing. Moving up the plant, you can see the braiding or interconnection of oral language, phonological awareness, decoding and encoding, and sight word recognition, indicating the relationship of these skills to reading. At the top, and once all of the prerequisite skills are mastered, we see reading comprehension. The goal of all reading instruction is ultimately targeted at helping a reader comprehend text. Thank you for watching this presentation.